We often talk about customer experience, but oftentimes it seems that a lot of businesses don't actually deliver that. And it's not necessarily because we don't know that customer experience is important. It's just that we don't really know how to. Today I'm talking with Alex Allwood, who's the CEO of the Holla Agency and author of Customer Experience is the Brand. And she goes into some amazing detail of that differentiating factor between those companies that are able to deliver customer experience and those that aren't, and what's going to happen to them coming up. Because in Australia, Amazon's obviously been in the rest of the world for quite some time, but they're actually moving to Australia, not moving, but they're setting up distribution and then that sort of thing in Australia coming up. And one of the big challenges is that they are focused specifically on customer service and how to actually become the best customer experience in the world, not just in a country, but in the world. And they have the power to do that. So Alex talks us through a whole bunch of different strategies that can be used to leverage what you already have to sort of identify the buyer journey that your ideal audience is going through, and give you some strategies that are going to help your business at the end of the day. So very exciting to be talking with Alex Allwood of the Holla Agency, coming up right away. Thanks.
Overwhelmed with online or just wanting to learn more about how you can build a successful business amidst all of the self-appointed gurus, big buzzwords and empty promises? The Breaking Digital podcast by Doyle Bueller tells you exactly what smart entrepreneurs need to know to escape the clutter, get clear of the confusion, and pass the bullshit of building and growing a successful business online. It's about digital leadership and delivering the best value for your business online to your audience. Now, here's your host and author of the book on digital leadership and online marketing, The Digital Delusion, Doyle Bueller.
So welcome back. Today I'm with Alex Allwood, who's the CEO of the Holla Agency, author of Customer Experience is the Brand. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, how you going?
Yeah, fantastic. How are you?
Good.
Thanks.
Lovely day.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So tell us about the Holla Agency. That's a very intriguing name. How did you come up with that?
Well, I came up with the name because it has a beautiful audio to it. The funny thing about the business name was 20 years ago we incorporated the Holla Agency, or what was then Holla Advertising. It's now known as the Holla Agency. And it wasn't fashionable back then to name business names and brand names by a verb. So it was quite distinctive.
Wow.
Now, everyone wants a verb for their brand name. So it stood the test of time and become highly fashionable as well.
Well, and that kind of sort of introduces yourself too, because the verb is, action for the customer and customer experience, and that's kind of the focus of your agency.
Absolutely, it's the focus now. We haven't always been in the customer experience space per se, or the customer experience space as we know it now. My background of 20 plus years is in marketing communications and brand strategy for organizations. And I have quite a depth of experience in strategy across finance and healthcare and retail and the not-for-profit sectors. About 2 or 3 years ago, I noticed a fundamental change in consumer behaviour that it's not crept up on us, but had been evolving over the last 5 to 7 years, and that is that with more opportunities to research companies and brands online and through social, consumers and potential customers and customers were using online and digital platforms to research before they even started their buying journey. And then they were going to their friends and peers through recommendation and reviews to validate their purchasing decisions. And that was a very distinct change from, what we previously know or traditionally know, the purchasing cycle, whereby traditionally we'd see an ad on the TV or the radio or read something in the magazines or newspapers. We'd have a need. We'd go and do a little bit of research around the shops and retail outlets. We'd come home and maybe have a discussion with our other half or the household, and then we'd go and make a purchase. And that was the beginning and the end of our relationship with the brand. Now, as I just explained, we do things a lot differently, and so consumer behaviour has changed a lot. And I was very interested in this shift in consumer behaviour, and so started to look at what customer experience was and how it could help organisations to grow and retain more customers by improving the customer experience.
So why do you think there's been a shift then? Is it because we're doing a lot of things differently with digital, or is it just sort of a change, a behavioral change?
I think digital has had a big influence on consumer behaviour, as I've just talked about or outlined. But I think the other thing is that what's changed is who we trust and why we trust them. And there was a piece of research done by an organisation called Edelman, and they do a research into trust and what we trust as a society. And just this year, again, we are seeing a big shift in where we placed our trust, and we no longer, as a society, trust politicians or organisations, brands, NGOs, but we are trusting our friends and our peers and our family increasingly. And this was demonstrated very clearly in the research this year.
So
that trust has big repercussions for brands, because if they don't get their customer experience right, then when they're dissatisfied with the experience and it doesn't deliver to what their expectations are, firstly, if they're very disgruntled, they will go to their social media platform and they will complain about that interaction to their friends and peers. And secondly, and more importantly, is when a friend or peer asks for a referral or recommendation, they will not put that brand on their buying list to recommend to their friends. So it has a big impact, this shift in our society.
So it's fundamentally driven by sort of that connectedness of your friends and your family and that sort of thing. Would you agree?
Not only connectedness, but a shift in trust. And that shift in trust has changed who we're prepared to rely on for credible information, because we don't trust those people that we used to hold in high esteem. One of the biggest drops in that research was CEOs of companies. CEOs of companies are no longer trusted by society. And that's a very interesting shift. That means that the authority in our society is no longer considered exactly that, an authority. It's our friends and peers that are now the authority in our lives.
So how do you then sort of show businesses how to, build that trust, how to, build that experience? How do you actually do that?
Well, I think that's the first important thing, is to acknowledge that the customer plays a very, very big part in your organisation. And I think businesses tend to forget that, you know. I mean, it's a very, what I call blue jeans approach. It's very basic.
We're
and
too casual?
No, I think that if people, if there's no customers, there's no business. And so if you care about your customers and care about improving your customers' lives, then you put the customer right front and centre, and you start to think about the things that you design, the things that you develop and create, like the products and the services, like the touch points, which are what we call brand interactions, the processes and the policies are all created to deliver a great experience for your customers. And I think that if you have that really back to basics blue jeans approach, and you say, well, what's going to create a rewarding experience for our customer? What's going to make our customer happy? And you start from that position, then there's a shift in terms of not only attitudes and mindset, but also behaviours around customer. And how we start is by engaging not only internal stakeholders, but also customers, external stakeholders, to start to come together and understand what the customer's needs are and what the customer's expectations are.
And how do you find that out? Like, do you use surveys or polls, or like how do you get inside of your mind of your customer?
Well, there are many different ways, and you've just mentioned a couple of them. Today, as your listeners will very much know, we have a lot of data at our disposal, whether it be the data of from social listening, from your social channels, whether it be the data from your website in terms of the analytics. We have other forms of data. For example, we have customer feedback data that tells us whether our customers are satisfied with the interaction or not. And then we also have data where we go out and we use research, like qualitative research and quantitative research, to understand people's attitudes and mindset in terms of what they're thinking and feeling about interacting with the brand. And then there's the very large bodies of research called market research. So there's lots and lots of different ways. Primarily, we use qualitative research coupled with quantitative research to really understand what customers are thinking and feeling at the time that they interacted with the business.
Yeah, no, that's quite the interesting way in terms of collecting data and that sort of thing. I mean, obviously we can't talk about everything, but one of the interesting things that has sort of occurred over the last 6 months is there's been sort of this sway of how data is used in social media and in certain sort of geopolitical cases. It was used sort of because it was much more behaviorally targeted. So, for example, the US election and Brexit and that sort of thing, they were actually able to use that big data kind of thing that you were speaking of to target these customers. Do you find that as a worry? Like, is that too much information that you need to know, or does that really help you do your job better? Because you're doing this for good. Does it allow you to do your job better if you know everything about your customer?
I think it definitely has a place. I like to start with more qualitative research in terms of what we call small data, not big data.
Okay. Why do you call it small?
Data, because it's not talking to thousands and thousands and thousands of people, not capturing insights of thousands of people in regards to their behaviour. or their in some cases their attitudes, and but it's really digging deep in terms of what they're thinking and feeling at that time when they were interacting with the brand. So we call it small data because it allows us to get really deep understanding of that customer's thoughts and feelings and attitudes and mindsets.
So you can take that small data and with what you have and then sort of form a customer profile or something similar to that, an avatar persona, and then sort of do the marketing. Is that what you mean?
I'm going to then, yes, you're quite right, use that to start to create some personas for the organisation. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do some journey mapping. Have you heard that term, journey mapping? It refers to understanding every interaction point that a customer, every interaction point between a customer and a company. And so there are many journeys, many customer journeys, what we call end-to-end customer journeys, that customers have with organisation. There's the path to purchase, what you were talking about in terms of acquisition or marketing there. We call that the path to purchase. And that's when the customer is, using different channels to research and find out about that company. They've got a need that they have to be filled. They've got a problem that they want to have solved. And so they're in the research phase. That's one part of the journey. And then they go and reach out to their friends and peers. Well, that's another step in that path to purchase. And then they might go into a bricks and mortar store and ask questions about the product or service. Well, that's another part in that end-to-end journey. And then they might go in and do some price comparison. Well, that's another step in that journey. And then they might back up to the retail store or go online and make the purchase. Well, that's another step. And that might form one purchase journey in an organisation.
Wow.
The delivery of that good or service might be another step in the purchase journey. There might be a problem with the product or service, and that is another end-to-end journey that we look at. So there's many journeys in an organisation, and what we do is we identify what are the most painful journeys, and we start fixing those.
And do you find that a lot of businesses kind of just gloss over that customer journey?
Most of them do.
Yeah. Why is that?
Most of them do. Most of them will have undertaken what we call an assumptive journey. Most of them will have not pinpointed through customer feedback their most painful journeys. And using assumptions, they will jump straight to, I know what my customer problems are. I'm going to start designing new systems and processes and procedures to solve our business problem. They haven't reframed their business problem as a customer, in the customer lens. And you can only do that by asking customers. You can't do that because what invariably happens is that people within the organisation believe that they know their business the best, and they believe because they're customers that they can inform that process. And you have a lot of aha moments when you go out and actually ask the customers what their problems were in dealing with the organisation.
So how do we get rid of that mindset then that we know everything, entrepreneurs, CMOs, business leaders, CEOs, we know everything about our customer, but yet in hindsight, it's like, no, we don't actually. How do we get past that mindset? Or is that possible? I don't know.
It is possible because those organizations that are truly customer centric, who have the customer at the heart of their brand, and are informed, and everything they do is informed by the customer, begin to have a distinct competitive advantage, begin to capitalise on organic growth through advocacy, through customer advocacy, and then they have superior business performance because the products and services that they're making are delivering sustainable growth. And when I talk about sustainable growth to me means that they're growing in terms of purchases, but also their costs are decreasing, and that comes about because their customers don't have so many problems in dealing with that business, and therefore they don't need to spend as much in customer service department in the call centre department solving people's problems.
Fascinating. Do you feel that there's a difference between service-based businesses and product-based businesses? Would they still sort of go through that journey map that you mentioned for both types of businesses?
We mostly look after businesses that are delivering a product or service that have a longer purchase journey than, let's say, an FMCG product, fast-moving goods product. For example, the purchasing behaviour around buying bread and milk and butter is quite different to buying a home or making a decision about a health provider or making a decision about a lawyer or buying a car or travelling. You go through a lot longer decision-making process than you do when you just go and buy bread and milk and eggs and butter. So we predominantly help those organisations with longer purchase journeys, and often, those are the ones that have problems in their interactions
because they're making some wrong assumptions in that journey.
Well, they've created interactions which don't, are not have friction or are not frictionless. The customer can't contact them or can't find the information, or they've put they're talking about the path to purchase. They've got content in the marketplace, and when they click through, the good or the service isn't available, or the price is not available, or they have to push 100 buttons to get through to someone to talk to, or when their furniture is delivered, it's chipped, or they have to stay home half the day and wait for delivery, the list goes on and on and on and on.
So you'll kind of help them map out those potential eventualities and build that into sort of a journey that they can then respond to?
That's right. So once we've done assumptive mapping with the organisation, with their internal stakeholders, that's employees in the business. We use employees from right across the business, not just marketing, not just the call centre, not just customer service, not just sales, but HR, IT, warehouse, delivery people. And we get them to come together and map out the end-to-end journey that is causing the business the most problem. And then we work with them. Then we do the customer interviews to understand what their interactions in the journey is, and then we work with them to try and fix those problems.
Sounds like quite the journey. And how long can that take?
3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months. Okay.
Realistically. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how, so obviously my thing is digital marketing and digital strategy and that sort of thing. So how do we sort of connect the two? Like, I love what you're doing and how you're doing it. And obviously there's some sort of hooks into digital, but how do you actually integrate, say, not a predominantly digital company, say like, JB Hi-Fi or, something like that they have an offline presence, but also an online presence. How do you kind of connect the two?
Well, I think if you step around from being on the organisation or the company's side and look at the channels, not from two separate channels in terms of not from a physical and digital, or not from online and bricks and mortar, but from the customer's point of view, you'll find that the customer doesn't make any distinction these days. It's just where am I getting my information? To put to the customer, it doesn't. There's not a digital channels where they get their information on, and then in store, bricks and mortar channels. It's I want the information when I want it, and I want it 24/7. So that might be my preferred channel, might be through social media, or website, or in store. It's about understanding that customer need at that time of interaction and giving them the right information at the right time.
So it's being basically prepared to accommodate or have those channels available, and then being able to just have them accessible so that they know that that's where they can be contacted. They know that that's where they can kind of do their thing. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I'm saying that different segments have different needs.
Okay.
And to optimize based upon your customer need.
Yeah.
And once you understand your customer, you'll be able to then focus your investments on what channels are going to satisfy their needs the most.
Yeah. So see where they are and then kind of respond.
Yeah, they might have language difficulties. They might have, they mightn't be digital natives. They mightn't be able to drive. All these things are going to shape where you invest, or what is the best area that you're going to invest in to optimize that channel for interaction.
So the big companies that are sort of jumping on the, Snapchat bandwagon, are they testing their assumptions, or are they kind of wanting to pursue different channels, or what do you think they're trying to achieve there?
I would make the assumption that that they've got a target segment who are heavy users in that channel, and so that method of finding out about that brand and connecting with that brand and engaging is appropriate for that customer or that customer group.
And from the other side, that assumption could be wrong too, and they might go, "Well, our customer's not there, or they're not there in big enough numbers." Yeah. And
they haven't asked their customer.
Yeah. So would it make sense just to ask them, or just do it and sort of find out by whether or not they get engagement on that channel? So should they, whatever, Nike kind of thing does a massive campaign on Snapchat, should they maybe just have asked, or should they or build the experience and see if actually people come and people engage them there?
That's a great question, because I think when you're talking about Nike and Coca-Cola and McDonald's, they certainly have budget to throw at. Let's develop a new idea, a new channel, a new way to do things and see if they come. But for most organisations that don't have those types of budgets, they have to be very focused where they invest their marketing budgets. And so I think it comes back to understanding your customer and where that person is hanging out and developing communications in that path to purchase to influence their decision making.
Yeah, well, it's a fascinating study. So don't make big assumptions, or if you are, check them out.
Can't afford to these days.
Yeah, you have to be smart.
Way too competitive, and way too commoditized, and organisations don't have an endless funding model to keep on bringing customers into the purchase funnel. Their focus needs to be not only acquisition, but more so these days on retention. It costs organisations 6 to 7 times more to bring a customer into the funnel, to acquire a new customer, than it does to retain a customer. Well, that just makes good business sense to me.
Yeah.
If you can start to make your customers happy by what you're doing, if your customer's happy, they're loyal. They're going to stay with you. I jotted down a great quote the other day from the CEO, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and he said, your customers are loyal right up until your competitor offers them better service. That's the challenge, is to keep your customers happy. But Amazon, some great lessons from Amazon. Amazon has about 42% of their online sales, 42% of all online sales in America are through Amazon.
Wow.
That is a big wow.
Yeah.
And Amazon comes to Australia late 2017.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
New piece of research from Nielsen, which has looked into Australian shopper behaviour. And it estimates that 1 in 2 Australian shoppers will buy something from Amazon. How's that for a conversion? 50% conversion.
Wow.
1 in 2.
And they just have to and they just have to open up a shop, or a distribution center rather, and a website when it comes right down to it. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So is there a lot of nervousness sort of in the industry that you've seen, or it's like there's a lot of discussion. Last week's Australian Financial Review, frontline headlines around the inevitable disruption of business to retailers from Amazon. JB Hi-Fi is putting millions of dollars, investing millions of dollars into how they're going to retain and grow market share in this marketplace. They estimate that Harvey Norman's is going to be affected the most, given that they compete on price. And Amazon has said that they will come into this market and cut all their prices by 30%, and to grow market share. Wow.
So retailers, yes, they are.
Another wow.
Yeah. They are. There is a sense of nervousness in the business community.
So the businesses need to not smarten up, but improve their customer experience so that they're not losing customers.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
they're
yeah. Go ahead. What are they needing to do?
So they're needing to get a deeper understanding of their customers' needs
now.
And now,
yeah,
and start to shape their relationship with the customer.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty interesting times. On that note, and sort of one last question before you go off to your next interview, how is customer experience going to change, or is it going to change? Because you said you saw a shift, or you identified a shift about 2 to 3 years ago. Do you see another coming shift in the experience side of business?
I think the gap will widen for those organisations that have customer at the heart of their business, and those that believe they do, but really don't. I see what's happening in Australia. Australia is a little bit more of an immature marketplace in terms of customer experience as opposed to America. And I think what's happening is that customer experience has become the thing to have. It's the shiny object. And there are a lot of companies talking about customer experience, but talk is cheap when you are not doing anything about customer experience. And Australians are great at talking it up, about customer experience, about anything really. Yeah. But delivery-wise, I'm not seeing big changes. Amazon's mission is to be the Earth's most customer-centric business. What a mission!
Wow. Yeah.
Earth's most customer-centric business.
Do you think?
And when you have,
go ahead. Yeah.
When you have a customer-led purpose across the business, and focused on a mission of serving the customer, that is a powerful tool to align the business around a cause, and that's customer and improving customers' lives.
Wow. So do you think they can pull it off?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, then businesses have a lot to worry about. And obviously that's where you come in, helping them through that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how do we get in touch with you then, Alex? Where can we find you?
You'll find me. You'll Google alexallwood.com.au and you'll find me there in all my glory with my books and my writing for both domestic publications and international publications. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn.
And I saw a recent article on CMO as well that you put out.
CMO.com. Yeah. I've just given the expert opinion for The Guardian.
Yep.
And so lots of places to read more about customer experience. Buy my book on Amazon. Lots of places that you can connect with me, ask me more questions, and get involved in understanding customers and creating great experiences for customers.
Fantastic. And the title of the book is Customer Experience is the Brand as well. So
that's right. And hoping to have a second edition of Customer Experience is the Brand by year's end. There you go.
Fantastic.
I said it out loud.
Good. Okay, well, a year from now, we'll have another one, a follow-up interview, and see how Amazon's doing and how your book's doing.
Okay, yeah, whether my predictions have come true.
Yeah, no, fantastic. It's been a fabulous discussion, Alex. I really appreciate your time. And for all the notes, you'll be able to get them for the listeners on breaking.digital. So once again, thank you, Alex. I really appreciate taking the time out. I know you've got a really busy schedule. So at that, I'll leave you and thank our audience for listening, and we'll see you online. Thank you very much for listening to Breaking Digital, the podcast for smart entrepreneurs wanting to become true digital leaders in their industry and to own online. If you have any comments on the program, please feel free to connect on Twitter at Doyle Buehler with the hashtag #OwnOnline. I would really appreciate it if you could share this podcast with your network, as I'm sure they will get some value from it for building their successful business online as well. You can find the resources that we talked about, as well as the transcript and full podcast for download on thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast or on iTunes or on SoundCloud. I'm Doyle Buehler, and I will see you online.
Thank you for listening to Breaking Digital with Doyle Buehler. While he goes and makes a sandwich, you can find all of the notes, links, and details on this podcast by visiting thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast. Go on and click that now. www.thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast. I'll definitely click that. If you'd like a free copy of the book, The Digital Delusion, How to Overcome the Misguidance and Misinformation Online, just send an email to doyle@thedigitaldelusion.com. See you online.